turn down. There we go. Oh no. That looks weird. Copy. Looks like we're live. Maybe. Let's see. Well, it's posted. I think we're live. There we go. We are live. Happy Thursday, November 20th, 2025. Lots has happened in the last 24 hours since I guess started yesterday, logged off yesterday, whatever you want to call it. But welcome to episode 12 of Addressing the Issues. Before we start today, there is an ongoing flash flood emergency in Menard, Texas, with 6 to 9 inches of rain already falling across the area, with the possibility of an additional 3 to 5 inches. This has been deemed a particularly dangerous situation by the National Weather Service for residents there, with a number of other areas in Texas in flood warnings. So keep Texas in your prayers today, as they've already been devastated by floods this year. And these areas also have a 2% tornado risk today. So pray for them, keep them in mind. You don't want to see another Kerrville type incident there for sure. A little bit of, I guess, a programming update. Tomorrow I've decided I'm planning to go live at normal time, 4:45 Eastern, on Addressing the Issues. We will not have a Searching for Solutions episode this week. I couldn't find a guest, and I couldn't really decide on what I would talk about, given it'd just be me. Not really any helpful suggestions from anybody I knew, so I was just like, you know what, I'll just go live, do pretty much the normal thing. It's going to be slightly different than normal. I plan on covering maybe 1 or 2 major stories if they arise, but I have like a tentative schedule for what we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to be discussing the President Trump and Zoran Mondami planned meeting in D.C. tomorrow. That should be rather interesting, if not hysterical. But I'll take a look at that tomorrow and give you my thoughts on it. And then I wanted to spend some time talking about some rather interesting projections I have for primaries next year, where all this is going politically. I do think that we're going to see some major shakeups in both the Republican and Democrat Party, and what goes on there is going to be a huge determining factor on politics moving forward. So I think I'll talk about that a little bit. It'll be more of like a theoretical episode than normal, but we'll just see how it goes. So this weekend, I plan on traveling. I'm going home for the holiday, Thanksgiving. I plan to host normal shows at normal time, still 4:45 Eastern, Monday through Wednesday. But I'm going to take a small break Thursday and Friday unless something just absolutely crazy happens, something rather important that just can't wait for next Monday. But I do plan to return the regular schedule next Monday, 4:45 Eastern time. Before we start, I want to remind everybody to like, comment, share, follow me, subscribe, whether on YouTube or Rumble. Sharing helps out a lot. I'd like to comment, or not comment with you guys. I'd like to talk to you guys in the comments. So if you're able to comment, feel free to. I'll try and respond to you in a timely manner. But yeah, I like interacting with you guys. It's always fun. But yeah, like, comment, share. Please share. The more you do to get this message out, the easier it is on me. And I appreciate it. But I'm going to start off with updates and continuations from yesterday's stories. Well, actually, before that, happy birthday, Joe Biden. I hope it's memorable. Oh, wait. All right. So the main story yesterday, the first story yesterday, there was 6 Democrat congressmen and women calling for sedition in the U.S. military and intelligence agencies. Well, we got a response from President Trump on Truth Social today. A few times, he retruthed a few posts, but he, from other people, I guess I should say. But he started off by stating, "It's called seditious behavior at the highest level. Each one of these traitors to our country should be arrested and put on trial. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. We won't have a country anymore. An example must be set." This was followed by, "This is really bad and dangerous to our country. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. Seditious behavior from traitors, lock them up." And then he wrapped up with, "Seditious behavior, punishable by death." I agreed yesterday, and I still agree today. You may ask and say, "Sam, didn't you say the First Amendment is absolute a few days ago?" And I would respond, yes, but I also said you can't offer credible threats or break the law and expect not to face the consequences. It does protect religious and political speech. It does not protect break the laws speech. So I'll say this time and time again because I actually believe this. No one is above the law, and it seems President Trump is in agreement. Democrats have spent the day criticizing President Trump's violent rhetoric, all while not acknowledging the calls for sedition of the military by their colleagues, to which President responded with a legal consequence to it in America. That's where that sits right now. We will see if they are put on trial. I hope they are. I hope at least they are expelled. Censorship is not enough for this. I don't want 6 people to waste more of my time with them having a strongly worded letter read to them in the halls of Congress. It's ridiculous. But continuing on with the censoring Olympics, we're on to day 2, kind of. Last night, Congressman Greg Steube claimed that he would file a motion to censure Representative Sheila Sherfilis McCormick and remove her from all committee positions for stealing $5 million of FEMA funds, laundering the proceeds, and using this money to fund her 2021 congressional campaign. This morning, Congressman Greg Steube claimed he changed his mind and stated on X, "On second thought, I've decided to skip censure and move straight to expulsion. Defrauding the federal government and disaster victims of $5 million is an automatic disqualifier from serving an elected office." I'd agree. You may be mad at Congressman Steube for voting no on the budget regarding the use of taxpayer dollars to pay out lawsuits, voting no, keeping the government closed, but at least he's consistent with saving taxpayer dollars. Congresswoman Sherfilis McCormick has been charged for this by the Department of Justice and currently faces 53 years in prison if convicted. At this rate, we can have probably every single Congress member censured before the election next year instead of actually getting any bills passed or codifying any of the Doge cuts. So, I mean, maybe we'll speak on this. We'll have 27 iterations in a row of the censuring Olympics, but I hope not. I hope this can get straightened out. They're wasting a lot of time, precious time. We're coming up on elections sooner than you'll realize, and this is going to be a really bad look if all we've got is strongly worded letters to somebody standing in the halls of Congress. Furthermore, one more update on stories from yesterday. The 30-day timer is ticking in Washington. Last night, President Trump signed the Epstein Files Transparency Act. In the next 30 days, the Department of Justice will be expected to turn over all files related to Jeffrey Epstein. This is expected to be over 50,000 files. The files are supposed to be produced in a searchable and downloadable format, accessible to all. Bet the black markers are going crazy in the DMV area right now. But 15 days after this publication, the Department of Justice is required to report to Congress with a summary of all redactions made and a list of all government officials and politically exposed individuals referenced in the documents. I guess in 30 days I'll use that search function to see if the name that half of America is hoping is on there, Donald Trump. The second search I'm probably going to do is Bill Clinton, because that will be entertainment. But I may just go through every president since the 70s, to be fair. 70s, 80s range. And we'll just be fair to everybody. We'll see who is in contact with the guy. Yesterday, a massive exclusive was released by Christopher Rufo and Ryan Thorpe titled, "The Largest Funder of Al-Shabaab is the Minnesota Taxpayer." I thought that was rather interesting, so I clicked on it. For some context, Al-Shabaab is a designated terrorist organization linked to Al-Qaeda located in Somalia. The federal counterterrorism agents have confirmed that millions in stolen funds from Minnesota taxpayers have been funneled to Somalia and into the hands of the Al-Shabaab terrorist organization. One of their sources claimed the largest funder of Al-Shabaab is the Minnesota taxpayer. This started as part of Minnesota's housing stabilization services with the goal of helping seniors, addicts, the disabled, and the mentally ill secure housing. With an estimated annual budget of $2.6 million, last year the program paid out $104 million, and in the first half of 2025 has already paid out $61 million, putting Minnesota taxpayers on track to pay out over $122 million by the end of this fiscal year. The investigation went into, on September 18th of this year, 8 individuals were criminally indicted for HSS fraud related to the program. This HSS fraud scheme had ties to the previous fraud scheme feeding the future. Politicians such as Ilhan Omar and Omar Fateh both had ties to the Feeding the Future fraud scheme. On September 24th this year, U.S. Attorney Joseph Thompson announced another fraud case in Minnesota involving the federally funded Autism Services for Children. Asha Farhan Hassan, who is part of the Feeding the Future scam, also defrauded Minnesota's Early Intensive Developmental and Behavioral Intervention Program by approaching parents in Minnesota's Somali community and having their children falsely diagnosed with autism to drive up enrollment and receive kickbacks. Autism claims in Minnesota demonstrate this starting at $3 million in 2028, rocketing up to $54 million the next year, and up to $399 million in the year 2023. These fraud rings have sent huge sums in remittances or transfers from the United States to Somalia. In just 2023, the Somalian diaspora sent $1.7 billion back home to Somalia. As this story gets worse, according to law enforcement, the Somali community has sent millions through hawalas, or informal clan-based money traders, which in turn ended up in the coffers of Al-Qaeda-affiliated terror group Al-Shabaab. As of now, law enforcement officials claim they are not even halfway there in discovering all the fraud related to the funding of Al-Shabaab terror network streaming out of Minnesota. So I would highly recommend checking out this article from Christopher Rufo and Ryan Thorpe. It's in the City Journal. I'm sure they'll have updates in the future, as hopefully they can find the other half of this money that has been defrauded from Minnesota and national taxpayers if it is a federal grant. The September jobs report was released today. Employers added 119,000 jobs in months of September. However, the unemployment rate rose 0.1% over the month to 4.4%. So if anybody can explain this math to me, I'd greatly appreciate it, but it sounds like this is likely something that's going to be revised in the future. This is after last week. The number of applications for unemployment benefits actually fell. but experts have suggested that this increase in total jobs could incentivize the Federal Reserve to cut rates during the month of December, which would be great. But that all depends on whether these numbers are revised or not. Today, in a press conference, Department of Education Secretary Linda McMahon announced Congress has shown interest in large steps to dismantle the Department of Education. Promises made, promises kept, as I would say. This will delegate duties to other departments of government, such as campus child care to Health and Human Services, the offices of elementary and secondary education, and post-secondary office to the Labor Department. The goal of this is to shrink the bloat of the federal government and also giving more power back to the state, while eliminating the Department of Education, an institution that has consistently lowered the quality of education since its inception. This is compared to the other 40 developed countries, where we have fallen to near the bottom, actually. During the press conference, it was claimed that local officials know better what their students need than the national government, to which I would wholeheartedly agree. I guess in international news, lots of U.S. military aircraft have been spotted over the Caribbean today via their transponders. Since their transponders are visible, I suspect this is a show of force to Venezuela. I don't think it would advertise the first attack like this. I truly don't. And I want you to think back to the diversion tactic used by the Department of War in the bombing of Iran's nuclear capabilities. These were planes with transponders on, flew eastward, while the actual mission flew westward around the globe with transponders off. Although it may be nothing today, this is the most activity we've seen in the Caribbean in a long time. So I'll keep my eyes on it. I think you should as well. This could have huge implications. Right before I went on today, National Guard's deployment in Washington, D.C. was just ruled illegal by another rogue district judge. This does not take effect for a number of days, allowing time for the government to appeal, which I think they likely will. But it just shows you the cojones of these judges to think that they are the president. It's something for sure. In other news, the U.S. Department of Transportation has just announced it will require car manufacturers to use female crash test dummies for the first time. Awesome. They stated their goal is to protect every member of the American family, including women. I didn't know that there were only male and baby dummies, but I think this is a step in the right direction for ensuring safety of everybody. And I'd say this is finally some productive diversity, equity, and inclusion. Finally. Going back a few days, I talked about the UN Climate Change Convention. Well, today, a large fire broke out in the building hosting it. Details are scarce as of right now, as the incident seems to be ongoing, but it was a large fire in a contained area. Well, I guess somewhat contained. It looked to be in a parking garage, but we'll guess see how that keeps panning out. Maybe it was an activist, I'm not really sure. I'd say it was likely an activist. You never really know. And then for the last story today, last night a Texas judge released his dissent to courts blocking Texas's redistricting. I found this dissent rather funny in a way, so I figure I'd just read it to you before wrapping up for today. It reads, "The main winners from Judge Brown's opinion are George Soros and Gavin Newsom. The obvious losers are the people of Texas and the rule of law. I dissent. In the interest of time, this dissent is admittedly disjointed. Usually in dissenting from an opinion of this length, I would spend more days refining and reorganizing the dissent for purposes of impact and readability. But that approach is not reasonably possible here because the two judges have not allowed it. The resulting dissent is far from a literary masterpiece. If, however, there were a Nobel Prize for fiction, Judge Brown's opinion would be a prime candidate. Judge Brown could have saved himself and the readers a lot of time and effort by merely stating the following: I just don't like what the legislature did here. It was unnecessary, and it seems unfair to disadvantaged voters. I need to step in and make sure wiser heads prevail over the nakedly partisan and racially questionable actions of these zealous lawmakers, just as I did to the lawmakers in Galveston County and Petaway. I'm using my considerable clout as a federal judge to put a stop to bad policy judgments. After all, I get paid to do what I think is right. In 37 years as a federal judge, I've served on hundreds of 3-judge panels. This is the most blatant exercise of judicial activism that I've ever witnessed. There's the old joke. What's the difference between God and a federal district judge? Answer, God doesn't think he's a federal judge. Or a different version of that joke, an angel rushes to the head of the heavenly host and says, "We have a problem. God has delusions of grandeur." The head angel calmly replies, "What makes you say that?" The first angel whispers, "He's wearing his robe and keeps imagining he's a federal judge. Only this time it isn't funny." So that's the end of that. I guess before we wrap up today, I just want to remind everybody, please like, comment, share, subscribe, follow. If you'd like to donate, there is a link in the bottom left of the Rumble thing. Typically, if you're in the smaller view mode, not in full screen. But if you'd like to donate, you can make a one-time donation. You can do a monthly donation if you'd like. It helps me keep this going. Helps me be able to keep spreading the news to you guys. Chad, make sure to share. And if somebody does want to sponsor me, remember my DMs are always open. Feel free to slide in, say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about a possible sponsorship. I'll do ad reads. I can show videos. I can try a product on stream if you'd like. But yeah, just keep that in mind. But that's all I have for today. It was a rather hectic day. There's lots of stuff going on. More and more. So I look over and see more. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed. To all my people on the East Coast, I hope you get home safe. To my people further west, I hope you finish up your workday strong and you get home safe as well. Keep in mind the people of Texas tonight. It doesn't look good as of now, and it's only expected to get worse. So, yeah, just remember to pray for them, and that's all I really have for today. I'll see you again tomorrow at 4:45. I know that's not normal schedule, but, you know, it's Thanksgiving. Things are hectic around here. We're going to be live at 4:45 tomorrow discussing the Zoran Mondami meeting with President Trump, and then just some, you know, me spitballing what I think the primaries are going to mean for both the Republican and Democrat parties. I think alignments are going to change a lot. I mean, you might not expect it, but I'll leave it there, and we will talk about it more tomorrow. But thank you guys for joining, and I'll see you.